Happy solar return to my Tauruses in the room. Do we have any other Taurus? Yes, indeed, that's right. Thank you, and happy birthday. Very good. So we got 3 Tauruses. Anybody else? Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, happy birthday. Yes, happy birthday to my Tauruses. Today, we get to celebrate Taurus energy, so you came to the right ritual. So Bealtaine, or Beltane, marks the central point of 15 degrees of Taurus, the halfway marker of the fixed season of spring. Taurus is symbolized in the tarot by the archetype of the Empress, adorned and surrounded by the beauty of spring and abundance of Earth's delights. And in the midst of this fixed season, especially after such a fiery start to our spring equinox, we find ourselves desiring to slow the pace and take in the beauty of the natural world blooming around us, experience the abundant sensual delights, and nourish our body and soul with gratitude for what we have cultivated. Taurus is, yes, fixed, unbothered, at peace, like Ferdinand the bull in the fields. Content, peaceful, smelling the flowers. This point marks the beginning of summer in Celtic traditions, as we have solidified that, yes, we have arrived in the bounty of the spring season. But even Ferdinand the bull, even the steady, peaceful Taurus, holds immense power when provoked. The ancients knew this power to be inherent in the divine feminine energy. In Hinduism, this raw, creative, universal power is known as Shakti, recognized as feminine in essence. It is active and dynamic, underpinning the entirety of existence of the universe. Personified as Devi, the Sanskrit word for goddess, meaning heavenly, divine, shining, and anything of excellence. They saw this as a complementary force to the male Deva, or Purusha, a passive, unchanging, observing principle. It is the union of these two energies that creates our universe. This appears in the Hindu tradition as the union of the male god, Shiva, the auspicious one, benevolent and fearsome, and the goddess, Parvati, goddess of power, nourishment, devotion, motherhood, fertility, and harmony. In some representations, we see Parvati calming her husband, Shiva, celebrating his ritual dancing, and acting as a harmonious consort and nourishment to him. She represents the ideal household caretaker and engages with the outside world as an embodiment of grace and a spiritual liberation. She bears the children, god of wisdom, Ganesha, and god of victory and war, Kartikeya. In many traditions, she's seen as the supreme deity, for it is only she who can calm Shiva's ferocity and draw him out of his asceticism and out of his isolated prayer. In much of the art depicting Shiva and Parvati, they are even portrayed as one being, the merging of masculine and feminine power to create the complexity, beauty, and destruction of the universe. Perhaps this symbolism indicates that our ancients knew that the merging of these two opposing forces within us is what allows us to return to our original source as creator, and that we hold the capacity for that sacred marriage within. Astrology carries this polarity, the awareness of creative opposing forces. And when we look at the chart of May 1st, just passed, we were greeted by the powerful Scorpio moon, the opposite sign of Taurus. The flower moon, an appropriate name for a process of transformation from seed to bloom, requiring the survival, endurance, and the audacity of one little seed in the dark. And what a miracle it is to be born of darkness and persist in breaking through the surface, facing the light, and reaching up toward the heavens to become something beautiful and adored, something that is useful and healing. Scorpio is the sign of transformation, one who rises out of darkness, out of wild roots, and expands into its raw power. When we are met with oppositions in a chart, such as a sun-moon opposition, like a full moon, this represents opportunities to gain awareness of polarization and to meet this obstacle by finding the truth in both sides. In this case, Taurus and Scorpio, abundance and transformation. And even within the goddess Parvati, she, as the supreme being, holds the power of ultimate destruction. And this form is recognized as the goddess Kali. Kali is depicted with black skin, wild red eyes, tangled black hair, and her tongue lolling out of her mouth. She is the ruler of time and known as the Dark Mother. She represents the personification of female rage, a goddess embracing the grim worldly realities of blood, death, and destruction. When we are wounded and faced with the destruction of our world, our raw power may be unleashed. And this is why you should never trigger a Taurus. They will start seeing red. If you push and 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 push their buttons, you had better be ready for the consequence. Ferdinand the Bull's wild ferocity even impressed the men from the city, who witnessed the pain he experienced from one little bee sting. Parvati, a goddess known as the Deer Mother, could turn wild and fearsome on the battlefield, portrayed as the terrifying Kali. In fact, it is only when Shiva, her consort, lies down on the battlefield and she steps upon his chest, that she is finally able to cool herself, recognizing in horror that she stands upon her consort and that she has been able to see past her limitless power. Shiva himself is said to fall at Kali's feet in devotion and surrender of his ego. He holds this aspect of his wife in reverence, and it is through this reverence that balance may return again. And I find it intriguing that on Beltane of 2026, traditionally a day of committing to our beloved and the union of two souls, that we are met with the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio, and the awareness that Taurus holds immense power when faced with what lies in the darkness. And what can be said for how we should be interpreting the onslaught of global catastrophe, the unfairness of human suffering, the repeated exposure to the frequency of hopelessness and war and inequality and injustice? It is a wonder that all of us don't turn into a fearsome form of unconstrained rage, especially when expected to live a life of well-performed mundanity. So what answers can astrology hold for us? Well, if we look ahead to the chart at the exact midpoint of Taurus season, just a few days later when the sun reaches 15 degrees of Taurus on May 5th, the moon has moved out of its fall in Scorpio and lands in Capricorn, forming a trine with Mercury in Taurus. Mercury will have a slower paced little excursion in Taurus, but he will be leaving just 2 weeks later because even he moves fast in Taurus. Both Mercury in Taurus and the moon in Capricorn are forming a grand Earth trine to the south node in Virgo. We hold in harmonic balance the energy of abundance, Taurus, structure, Capricorn, and discernment, Virgo. The moon in Capricorn asks us to remember to ground ourselves, be practical, lay the foundation that can actually be built upon. Mercury and the sun in Taurus are asking for our patience, our presence, our awareness of the beauty that surrounds us. And the south node in Virgo requires us to determine what is no longer useful, what to shed, what we need to leave behind. This trine at the midpoint of Taurus season offers us a stabilizing force of nourishment and regeneration. And yet, in the same moment, Mercury stands in a powerful square with Pluto in Aquarius. Mars in Aries faces off in a square with Jupiter in Cancer. These are aspects that will challenge us to be mindful of how much energy we are using to assert our will, and how much energy we are spending thinking about what we cannot control. Squares with Jupiter, which Mars will be making, often look like using too much power, too much aggression, too much confidence, too much competitiveness. And Mercury and Pluto together in a square creates paranoia, obsession, fear, shame, guilt, messages from the darkness that we didn't want to see. Jupiter and Pluto magnify the forcefulness of these cardinal signs, Cancer and Aries, and Pluto, these fixed signs of Aquarius and Taurus. And this is prone to harshness and defensiveness when provoked. I am reminded of how Ganga, a personification of the holy Ganges River, descended from the heavens. And the gods were so terrified of how this river goddess might submerge the earth in her overwhelming flow that the god Shiva offered to hold her in his matted hair and release her in streams, thus earning the name Gangadhara, or the bearer of the Ganga. It is said that he offered this in compassion toward all beings, so that they may benefit from the power of the Ganga and not be consumed by it. Now, Shiva himself is considered a god of destruction, so the meeting of the Ganga and Shiva symbolizes the eternal cycle of creation and dissolution. When we are met with overwhelming forces and are tempted to respond immediately in kind, it is moments like this we must remember. Containment of our power is not restriction. It is devotion to a better outcome. That awareness and control of our rage, our anger, our grief, and our raw force is what allows us the power to create rather than consume. This Beltane, let us remember to be like Taurus, patient, grateful, sensuous, nourishing, and relishing in the world's abundance, even when we are met with fear and suffering. And let us be like Parvati, who holds the power of the Kalika inside of her at all times, adored and feared, benevolent and violent, chaos and refinement, joined together in sacred union, channeled into a creative force for the good of our family and our friends and our community. Let us remember that each of us holds within us infinite possibility, and that as we become aware and sharpen our control and our intuition, that we integrate those polarizing sides of ourselves into the truth of what we are meant to be, that we remember that we are the creator of our reality. In a world rich right now with the stimulating presence of Uranus in Gemini, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and Pluto in Aquarius, a world potent with so much fire and air and force, fueling us into a potential storm of urgency and destruction, let us carry the wisdom of the goddess. And remember that power is not meant to be rushed. Creation is meant to be cultivated, strengthened, and protected. And may you all live a life of divine purpose and glory, for you are worthy. And you are free. Blessed Beltane to you. Thank you.